few of these, like 10 or so different ways of playing that.
Tell me, connections between West Africa and Delta blues music.
But there's a wonderful article written by a musicologist, Lucy Duran, who spent 40 years in West Africa. She wrote an article, which you must maybe have a look at, about a piece called Poi, which would have been played on the ngoni, which is the ancestor of the banjo. West African instrument, and Poi, she has the idea that Poi could have been the first blues piece, and it was a piece that was played by the vanquished warriors who were taken prisoner. It would be played to them while they decided whether they want to be beheaded or taken into slavery by their people who'd captured it. So this was the piece, Poi, and obviously, it exists in kind of some amorphous space. We have no idea what it might have sounded like, but the name continued. So her theory is, if I remember the article correctly, is that these young men who chose to live would have ultimately been sold into the transatlantic slave trade and arrived and had the echoes of this piece, Poi, still in their minds, and when they started to recreate the instruments, that could have been, so these types of things happen, but so that's historically. And then of course, you listen to Ali Farka Toure, and his way of playing the guitar is 100% rooted in the lute that they play in the area, the one string instrument that he made for himself as a child. He was also listening to American music as well. So there's this, and I think he was listening to it in order to hear the echoes of his music rather than listening to it to learn it. He listened to it to affirm that it came from his home.
Excellent. One last question. One of my lectures is called The Origins and the Beauty of the Guitar, and we trace it back to the oud and to the lute, but you're saying that the kora was probably the predecessor of all of those.
Not kora, ngoni. I don't know exactly how it works, because you have the oud and the ngoni, and I don't know if the ngoni is the ancestor of the oud or a simplified version of the oud that was copied from the oud in a different way. Who knows? Probably a bit of both, right? Because they keep going backwards and forwards, and but I don't actually know what the connection between the vihuela and the lute is. The lute came from the oud, and basically, with the Moors, and then they added frets because they wanted to be able to play chords. So you had this fret thing, but at the same time you had the vihuela, which was a much more popular instrument. It was considered, because it had a guitar-shaped body, it was considered a more Christian instrument than the Arabic lute. So in the 1500s, the vihuela tablatures were disseminated all over Europe from Spain, because Spain was the dominant empire, let's say. So, but with the Spanish kind of losing prominence and the French coming up, the lute took over.
Yeah. Last question. What can my blues students learn from listening to West African music?
Well, I think they can learn a lot by playing it. If they hear the call and response, you hear the declamation, you hear the cyclical riff-based music. You hear the importance of just drone, and I think what happens, the chordal element of blues, the 1-4-5, that's what's different. I think if I might be wrong, but I think West African music is like honing in on one of the chords and seeing what's happening there, and it's about polyrhythms. It's about it's the weave of things. There's no chordal theory. It's about what happens if three people do three things. How can they move together? And those three people could be three fingers.
Very good. Thank you so much.